Salaam Khateeb. So, inshallah, as we continue with this series, what we did is we asked khutbah, people that are already giving khutbahs, people that are training others to give khutbahs, and people that are kind of khateebs in waiting, a bunch of questions. And I believe the best approach is the shura-based approach when it comes to making decisions. So we have a list of questions that we're going to go through. Some of these questions are low level, right? Very, very basic.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the questions are fiqh related, so as we'll keep reminding that, we'll guide you to some resources, definitely the one that Imam Murad has developed. Some are organizational level issues, and those require some further discussion. And some are a lot more advanced. We'll try to balance the questions, but every question we ask, inshallah, will give a direct answer and guide you to resources for further information, inshallah. All right, let's hit up the first question.
We'll start in a rapid fire manner. Do you need a microphone to give a khutbah?
Well, if your voice is loud enough and everyone can hear you, alhamdulillah. There are moments where I've been giving the khutbah and the microphone system shut off entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the moments that you don't know what
to
to
use your theater voice, eh?
Exactly. You have to kind of raise your voice.
Yeah.
But that's where you become, you do your best, alhamdulillah.
Does the audience have to hear the khutbah for it to be valid?
No. The main thing is that you try to do your best. You raise your voice. You're not required to make every single person hear the khutbah, because in all reality, if you have a microphone system that actually works, but the echo is out of whack, no one can understand what you're saying to begin with. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Is there a minimum age requirement for the khatib?
Well, of course, we do have, even for the salah, there's a minimum age requirement for the salah where he leads others, right? So you can't have someone who's not baligh, who is not, at that age where they're able to distinguish between halal and haram. So for a khatib, you want someone to give the khutbah while they understand what they're giving.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, they have an understanding of the maw'idah that's being put forth. And keep in mind, this is an ibadah.
Mm-hmm.
So since we're carrying the theme of the ibadah on, we want to have this ibadah, complete in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
There are scenarios that may come up where we don't have a khatib. That can be discussed afterwards.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So double down and go deeper then. Is there a minimum knowledge requirement or Islamic knowledge or public speaking skill requirements?
So here you're asking about competencies, right?
Yes.
So we break down competencies into knowledge, skills, judgment, and there's a fourth that gets often ignored, diligence.
Yes.
So is it enough to just have a set level of knowledge and you never enhance your abilities? But in terms of basic knowledge requirement, let's hit up that one first.
Well, in terms of basic knowledge requirement, you're not required. Let me start off with this, because from the fiqh perspective, we usually kind of put aside certain things that are not required.
Yeah.
That you understand fully what is required of you. So you're not required to be an alim.
Mm-hmm.
You're not required to be a hafid of the Quran. You're not required to be one who has a beautiful voice,
Mm-hmm.
or even a loud voice for that matter. All these things, loud voice is something that would be, preferable, especially when there's no microphone. But overall, we have the hadith. That's the guiding principle. بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. So if you have the know-how of how to structure a basic khutbah, and you're able to deliver a simple message, that's the khutbah.
So is there a khatib ijaza system? Sort of like with Quran and other things? Have you ever heard of anyone?
No, I have not, but there are ijazat in the past that were ijazah for a kitab, ijazah from a scholar, whereby they would give you the ijazah that you're able to carry his ilm and pass it on to others.
Fair enough.
But for a khatib,
right?
Not that I've heard. No.
So, and when we talk about khatib certification, what if somebody says, hey, this is not part of our tradition?
That's interesting. I mean, if someone says that, we have to ask, what tradition are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. And then sometimes people ask a question. Answering the question is one thing,
Yes.
but then questioning the answer is another. But there's a fourth level, questioning the question. Not the questioner, but
Yes.
questioning the question. Like, what are you really asking here? So when a khatib says something like, can I wear shirts and jeans, for example? Okay, inshallah you can answer the etiquette of clothing and stuff. But the real question is, should you be wearing shirts and jeans? If that's your best clothing, okay, great, right?
Yes.
Take your best clothing.
Yes.
But also when it comes to the knowledge, for example, okay, basic knowledge, that's one thing. But you should continuously be refining your knowledge.
100%.
So ideally, if there was one body of knowledge that a khatib must know? What would it be?
Well, I would say, yani, this is going to be somewhat tricky, because if we're going to look at, what knowledge he should have, I would say that he does not give or does not say something in the khutbah that he's not sure of. Going
Very
back to
good.
بَلِّغُ عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً.
Yeah.
You're going to give an ayah. The worst thing is a khatib gives knowledge because you are in a position of trust.
Yeah.
When you abuse that position, Ya Rabbi, that's a mas'uliyah, that's a responsibility that you will be held accountable for.
It sure reminded me of, I did a khatib training a long time ago, and I hope the young man is watching. And I remember each young khatib was standing and, doing their, practice khutbah. So he stood up and he said, according to scientists, the day of judgment will be on, and then everybody just froze and stopped and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. So when you're, again, regurgitating what somebody else is saying is one thing. So on that point, let's say a khatib has basic Islamic knowledge, okay?
Yes.
He knows Allah and His Messenger, and he desires them more than anything else, but just, inshallah, there's a high level of iman. Is it okay for him to just read somebody else's khutbah?
There's absolutely nothing wrong in that. I mean, actually, there are many websites out there, resources.
Yeah.
I haven't come across any that are that good in English,
Mhm.
but let's be fair, there are some. And with these websites, it gives you like a basic structure of the khutbah.
And just out of respect for the people that did that,
Yeah.
because you don't need to find a khutbah to read.
No.
You have your own. So I'm sure the beginners that
Oh, yes.
go to any websites that they find credible and legitimate, it's a
Yeah.
good resource.
Mhm.
We'll provide ready-made khutbahs.
Yes.
Not because our khutbahs are better than anybody else's, but just because it's a one-stop shop sort of.
That is-
So I just wanted to
Yes.
jump in on that one. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So reading somebody else's khutbah, no problem.
I have no issue with that at all. Yes.
See, I would be concerned if the khatib did not do their homework, did not try to develop a khutbah, did not work with somebody on developing the khutbah if they don't know how, and also if they didn't look at the sources that the whoever wrote the khutbah is
Yes.
doing, and also remember cultural context. Like if the khutbah was delivered in overseas,
Mhm.
the issues might not apply to our North American context, right? So let's also.
I think the relevance is key over here because,
Relevance.
like you said, sometimes someone will take a khutbah from abroad
Yeah.
and they'll use it here, but there's no connection.
All right. Yeah. Like imagine when it comes to the Jamia of Salah, for example.
Yes.
If you told anybody in a desert country that it gets -15 here, they'd be like, Ijma. We're like, no,
Exactly.
we're fine.
Yes.
Under 25, different story.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes. Yes. Mhm. So I'm just going to go back to the point. بَلِّغُ عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. If you go back to that hadith now, like I said, the thing is you don't want to give something that you don't know. And the issue here is sometimes the khatib may find themselves at a point where they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So they picked up a hadith or an ayah and they see people, he's maybe thinking in his mind, this is going to be a easy 5-minute khutbah.
Yeah.
But when he comes to say it, it's now under 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What do I do? What can I fill the khutbah with? And that's a point where you have to be very careful because I'd rather you end the khutbah in that
Mhm.
condition as opposed to adding something on that you're not sure of.
Yeah. And I think most khatibs have a problem with longer khutbahs than shorter. If you can do short khutbahs, go for it.
Yes.
One strategy would basically say, I'm going to end the khutbah early so that I can give you more time to do blank, insert
Yes.
action here, right? So
Mhm.
whether it's dhikr, whether it's afshu salama bainakum, get to know each other, whether it's get back to work, whatever
Yes.
the idea is, but integrate it rather than just, freeze up and then stop.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
That was a really good deep dive. Let's go back to the more rapid fire questions. Are you allowed to read notes off of your phone?
Well, there's nothing to say that you can't. We just said right now,
Mhm.
you can take someone else's khutbah and read it.
Yeah.
There's no issue in that. So that means you're going to be actually reading from something. But I guess this is more with the issue of connecting with the crowd. I mean, there is a difference between someone reading like this
Yeah.
and just, blasting at 100 words per minute,
Yeah.
as opposed to someone who's taking the time to actually say each word and feel the emotion behind the word to connect with the one in front of them.
100%, 100%. And I think that this is not just about the basics of the khutbah, right? This is about being a competent khatib and constantly improving.
Yes.
And the phone thing is an interesting one because, many khatibs hold papers, for
Yes.
example, keeps them structured for whatever reason. And a lot of masajid actually have a spot for the paper, which is
Yes.
an awesome idea.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe if you're a Khateeb that always uses paper, maybe just pick up a portable, what do they call those things, where they put the papers on? Like a tripod or
Oh, yeah.
stand?
Stand, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stand.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we know, you get the sense of it, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but the idea is, when you hold your phone,
Mm.
what message does it send to the people? That you're not prepared, that you just pulled it, but then again, the phone's always with you.
Yes.
So what I used to do instead of the phone is I'd grab my iPad, right, or
Okay.
a tablet, and at least it's like a paper. But at the end of the day, I mean, these are going to be personal preferences, and sometimes it's not a bad idea to survey the audience,
Yes.
right? I do that all the time. Any new khutbah I give, which is why I really love the Hanafi style, the
Oh, yes.
bayan first, because then there's no real restriction on,
Yes.
but for example, when I go to universities,
Mm-hmm.
I will survey the audience, survey their degrees, what level they're at. I mean, I want to know if I'm talking to master's level students, PhDs, or are they all undergrads?
Yes.
Now, usually the majority are engineering students, right? So
Yes.
I throw a little quirky joke about a psychologists
Yes.
not being seen as real scientists in their eyes or whatever, just whatever. But the point is, I wonder if that would be a question to ask the audience. Hey, how do you guys feel about this phone? Does it bother you if I'm holding the phone?
Actually, it never occurred to me that could be something, but to be like for myself, when I give a khutbah, it's not every single word written. It just points, bullet points.
Yeah.
It just keeps me on track as I give the khutbah, because sometimes we're human beings.
Yeah.
As you're giving the khutbah, your mind might wander off on a certain point, and before long, you've taken more time than you've actually set out for that
Yeah.
point, and
Of course.
You know,
Of
he
course.
did more than
It's
half an
more
hour.
to restrict than
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So there's a collection of fiqh questions. Do you need a specific number of people for the khutbah to be valid? And are there other specific things to make the khutbah valid, such as having a number of men versus women, having travelers or non-travelers,
Right.
and so on and so forth?
And Imam Murad can easily answer these questions, but it's better for the Khateeb to do a little bit of research. However, the important thing is that the khutbah and the Khateeb is what our primary focus is. A lot of the fiqh issues need to be answered by the administration, the ones actually that are responsible for the Khateeb and the khutbah. So whether it's number, size, location, all of these things you'll get answers to, but connecting with the administration on those matters will I think is really important.
Yes.
Because we forget that no matter what, Khateeb should not be alone ever.
Yes.
He should not make the final decisions on these things. If the Khateeb is not comfortable with a fiqh issue or whatever, then he just refuses to give the khutbah.
Yes.
But the idea is, deal with the coordinators there, ask them these questions, and if you like, we can provide you with a list of questions to ask the location
Yes.
to make sure that there's a good fit.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So all the fiqh issues, Imam Murad has addressed them in his book, and inshallah they will be shared with the facilitators of the training.
Yes.
Because if you're facilitating a training and a student asks the question,
Yeah.
you don't want to leave them hanging. So we'll provide that as well.
Inshallah.
So let's dive deep into another group of questions that are related to how does the Khateeb connect with the administrator, right? So can you give some advice on how to best communicate with the administrator? And there are other questions such as, you're going to different locations, some of them may not be a masjid or even a musalla. How do you orientate that place for salah, such as setting the prayer lines and the direction to face?
I mean, you're talking about setting up a musalla. I mean, Khateebs don't set up musallas, right? And sometimes the boundaries get crossed very quickly where you're expected to do these things. I mean, I'm going to say be assertive,
Yes.
right? And talk to the people, the one that invited you to give the khutbah.
Yeah.
Speak to them at least a few days before the khutbah.
Yes.
Right? Ask these questions. Have that conversation. But I understand the system we have, especially in Canada, even in America, is that there's a shortage of Khateebs, and there's a overflow of congregants, and there's not enough space. So there's multiple khutbahs now, and then with the multiple khutbahs, you need multiple Khateebs. So if a Khateeb is not comfortable giving more than one khutbah, he should make that clear.
Yes.
But also be flexible enough because they need you, right? So the idea though is if you go to a location and you have to be dealing with those issues, something is wrong.
Yes.
It's a red flag, and I think if the masjid or the musalla needs help, they can always reach out to the main masajid around them, right?
Yes. I just want to add to that. I think for the volunteer khateebs, wherever you're going to be going, don't be afraid to ask those questions that need to be asked.
Yes.
As you're saying, Dr. Mahdi, reach out. I think that is key over here.
100%.
And I found that to be very helpful. Sometimes the one or the masjid, the administration, they're under the assumption that you already know.
100%, yeah.
So when you get there, suddenly you're doing something that they say, hold on a moment, you should have known this. Well, that's why it's important to have that communication, that clarity in communication.
إنما شفاء العي,
السؤال. Exactly, yes, yes.
cure for ignorance is inquiry.
Yes.
So if you don't know something, ask.
Yes.
Why did they not ask if they did not know? And so the whole idea is, as a khatib, especially with the training, these are the types of things that we'll reinforce. But I'll double down on the idea that you're not alone. You should never be alone. That's why we're doing this, right? And so the whole idea is, let's say here in our city, in Edmonton, we know all the locations of the khutbahs,
Yeah.
and we know all the administrators, and we know who is coordinating. You know, the ones that get complicated usually are the universities and the schools where the coordinators change, but there's always a coordinator.
Yes.
You know? So we can help organizations with a manual on setting up a khutbah, but that's not necessarily our priority because we're assuming that, you know, the khutbah was already in motion, right? So
And just to add to that, Dr. Mahdi, when I was in Malaysia, I had the most interesting experience. I was requested by the University of UIA to give a khutbah at the masjid that they have. They have two locations. So I went to give the khutbah there. They said, okay, this is your day.
yeah,
What topic do you have? I told them in advance. I thought, okay, no, this is perfect. I have everything set down. I get there, and then suddenly the person who's the actual facilitator tells me, no, it's not your day today. You got to come next week. I said, but brother, I got the confirmation.
and I've got a flight tomorrow.
Exactly. So then they're like, no, there was a mistake. We put you as a replacement, but the actual person showed up, so you were the backup of the khatib. But, you know, alhamdulillah, they said,
Yeah.
okay, come next week. And I was still there, so I gave the khutbah the week after, alhamdulillah. But, you know, those unexpected situations,
Yeah.
they will arise. And the thing is, you have to keep your calm.
Yeah, let me ask you on that one.
Yeah.
Because it's important for khatibs to manage disappointment
Yes.
properly and maintain their emotion and recognize that administration is often volunteers themselves and they're overwhelmed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's Friday afternoon, especially here in it's not a holiday, it's not a day off. And they're doing the best they can. Their main concern is the parking.
Yes.
And the neighbors complaining, all these kind of things. And the khatib, if you can alleviate your brothers and sisters of that pain, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for it, right?
Yes.
And so that's, I think, a really important thing is to manage the disappointment and the frustration
Yes.
with a sunnah-based response rather than get upset and start, you know.
That's where you can practice saying alhamdulillah in a calm manner that kind of gives you that sense of, you know,
and which
relaxation.
gives you khutbah material for next time.
Alhamdulillah, exactly.
Because that's another thing that
Yes.
I do believe we should be addressing, is that the most basic of questions that a new khatib will ask is, what should I talk about?
Yeah.
So if you have a really powerful experience between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yes.
this is just my opinion, don't do too much self-disclosure.
Okay, I agree with that.
Because technically, you're not necessarily going to be the role model for that audience. And a 60-year-old, 70-year-old man is not going to look at a 22-year-old as somebody with wisdom and experience, right? However, having said that, I'm also drawing from psychotherapy practice. If
Yes.
your self-disclosure is in the best interest of the people, that's great.
Alhamdulillah.
But if it's about you talking about yourself because you enjoy it, instead, draw on that emotion when you speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, you know, like, it's like, for example, having a yaqeen moment. Something me and my son, you know, talk
Yeah.
about a lot. But the idea is, when something happens that is so, like, for you, it gives you absolute certainty that Allah exists, that's something you want to keep
Yes.
in your mind, right?
Yes.
Which could be a khutbah topic in and of itself.
Mhm.
But on the notion of what should I talk about,
Mm.
that is something that I think the first basic thing
Yeah.
would be what? What should a Khateeb talk about that's mandatory?
Well, quite honestly, there are many topics, but often as a volunteer Khateeb who's giving maybe the first khutbah, that's when it becomes confusing. What should I talk about? You might think it's already been done. People have talked about it already. I found my greatest inspiration going back to the surah that everyone recites.
Yeah.
And looking deeper into those surah, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. You might look at it and think, well, it's a short surah.
Yeah.
But when you begin to look at the story behind it and what lessons we can take from it, the life lessons we can draw from that, and how applicable they are to our lives today, that is powerful.
Yeah.
It could be a 10-minute khutbah, but so to the point. That person walks out invigorated, they feel that they've got that iman boost that'll last them till the next week. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
Don't make it complicated. I'd say stick with the basics. It could be as simple as giving a talk on Tawheed.
Yep.
Qul huwallahu ahad. Talk about that. And if you don't know what to speak on, look at the tafsir, which is now in English. You can go back and look at the meanings of the surah. What stories were there? You know, look at that Sahabi who would never recite pray a single rak'ah except that he recited Qul huwallahu ahad.
Yeah.
And add that to your khutbah to show the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what it can do for you.
And that's why I think with the question, what should I talk about?
Yeah.
If you're asking that question, you should have a mentor
Yes.
to discuss it. Okay. And the other thing is, I would say find out what the previous Khateeb spoke about and do that. But then you still have that collaboration issue that we discussed in another episode. But
I think especially if there's volunteer Khateebs in this location, you don't know what the other one spoke about to
Yeah.
begin with. He came once and that was it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think there's a whole range of resources that we can provide.
Yeah.
You show up, but they all introduce you as sheikh. You're not a sheikh. Do you deny you're not a sheikh, or do you just roll with it?
That is
That's a great question.
that is amazing. I love that
Yeah.
question. Well, look, out of respect, they're gonna call you sheikh.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not a matter of you being a scholar or having knowledge, because in Arabic, sheikh could be someone who is
Over 40.
older,
Yeah.
you know, senior, someone who's given some degree of respect, because you have sheikh al-qaba'il, sheikh, different, you know, is using different references. So, to me, I wouldn't say, no, don't call me a sheikh. We do have some people would say, yeah, unless to be sheikh.
Yeah.
I'm not a sheikh. But then you insisting that you're not a sheikh somehow I feel gives the opposite. It has an unintended impact
That's a
where
good point.
you know I this happened to me.
Yeah.
Where you might come across where yes I'm not a sheikh, but then like okay when you do speak people look up to you and say yeah actually you are a sheikh, and that's why you don't want that to be the case. Yeah.
You know, this issue is a matter of credentials, right? And one aspect of respecting, or demonstrating that care for society
Yeah.
is that you don't do, I think they call it tadlis,
Yeah.
where you're not over exaggerating your credentials, right? So, for example, in the field of psychology, psychologist is a regulated term, which means nobody can call themselves a psychologist unless they have certain requirements.
Yeah.
Likewise, to call yourself a doctor. But this issue at a ethical level
Yeah.
is a big deal in credentials and
Yeah.
misrepresentation of your credentials, because it has people lose trust, and that's the essence of it, is the trust in who you are, right? So if the audience needs to call you sheikh to feel safe, it's a different story.
Yes.
If you're calling yourself a sheikh and you're not a sheikh, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or you're calling yourself a alim or a hafid, or you know what I mean, you're not. Well, okay, again, there's,
Yeah.
you're misrepresenting yourself. But the whole idea is, my personal opinion would be let it slide, because then emphasizing on it, sometimes it appears like it's unnecessary humility. Right?
Yeah.
It's just, you're demonstrating your humility. Now, if it's that important to you, by all means, say, I'm not a sheikh, I'm just a khatib. I always turn down when they say imam, because imam is a title.
Yes.
Oh, imam, I say, actually, I'm not the imam. Because there's,
Yeah.
if they say, I went to this masjid,
Yeah.
and I listened to this sheikh, that's one thing. I went to the masjid and I listened to the imam, well, they know exactly who the imam is.
Yes.
So, and that's just because they'll want to ask a question or whatever, I'll say, you need to ask the local imam. He's, there's his office, whatever.
Yeah.